I think we're going to get started, everybody. How's everybody doing? All right, some afternoon energy. I'm feeling afternoon energy. Ready for some coffee? Yeah. Thanks, Amy. Thank you. Who wants to hear a joke? Some of you? All right. I tested these with my team earlier. So I'm told by my team, who might be required to laugh at my jokes, that it's good. Okay, so I'm going to try it on you. Are you ready? You seem dubious. Yeah. All right, the joke is, why should you distrust atoms? Why should you distrust atoms? Anyone know?
They make up everything.
Because they make up everything. Wow. All right, thank you. I'm Elliot Shmukler, co-founder and CEO of Anomalo. Thank you for coming to this talk. I'll try another joke on you at the end if that one didn't work for you. But as you may have guessed, I want to talk about AI. Right? You've probably heard all about AI at the summit. You're excited about AI. Who has seen this chart of AI capabilities? Wow, not a lot of folks. Some of you. Does anyone know what this means? This is a really, really cool chart. It's from an organization called Meter. Meter without the second E. Meter. And what this chart represents is, for a given AI model, how complex of a task can it take on today? And the way they do this is they have a series of tasks and they give them to the models and they try to have the model complete the task successfully. And they consider it a success if the model can get it right 50% of the time, right? So it's not perfect task completion. It's how often can the model get it right 50% of the time? How complex of a task can it get right at that level? You folks see what's been happening here in the world, right? So when this chart starts, 6 years ago, models could only do things that maybe took a few minutes, right? Even a couple of years ago, you might be looking at 30 minutes. So if you asked an AI model to do something that was going to take a human more than 30 minutes, you had no chance of it finishing. Do you see what it is now? And by the way, this is old now. What's happened with the latest models is they have exceeded the scale. So Meter needs to come up with new tasks to evaluate models on. So this is old. But as of Claude Opus 4.6, AI models can now handle tasks that can be as complex as something that would take a human 14 hours. Huge change. And so the goal of my talk today is to convince you that you should be asking AI to do some 14-hour tasks for you and not just 30-minute tasks. Right? And most folks today are asking AI to do 5-minute tasks, 30-minute tasks. Writing SQL queries, answering a simple question, writing a data quality rule, those kinds of things. What you should be doing, starting now, because the technology exists, and I will show you some of the products that we have live today. What you should be doing is asking AI to do more stuff for you end to end. Right? Asking it to do more of those things that might take a human 14 hours. And so we have a name for this. We call it self-driving data. This idea that with the technology that's available today, you can set goals for your AI agents, you can set goals for your AI, and it can complete things, some things, not everything yet, but it can complete things end to end, right? Rather than only do things that take a few minutes, only do things that kind of assist you or help you. It can take on big pieces of your job autonomously. And in fact, we believe at Anomalo that a lot of data team tasks will be handled by AI in the future. Almost every routine task, even today, you can ask the right AI agent to complete for you. So I'm going to show you one big example that we have live right now that implements this vision. First, a question. So I'm assuming all of you work with data? Yeah? No, you don't work with data? You're at the wrong conference. All right, that was a funnier joke than the atoms? Okay. Today, if you have an important data set, right, important table in Snowflake, how do you know if anything's changed in that table? You come in the morning and you're like, has anything changed in my table today? How would you know? Anybody? Nobody knows? Who doesn't know when their data changes? No one's going to raise their hand for that, right? Who knows when their data changes only when someone tells them? Yeah, I saw some head nods over here. Yeah, okay. Who knows when their data changes because a dashboard has changed, right? You had to refresh something. Yeah, you can raise a hand for that, right? Who knows that their data changed, only when they're asked some sort of question about the data, or they're doing some sort of investigation and they realize that something has changed? Yeah, we got a hand over here, right? Very often in the process of investigating something, you're like, this is different than it was before. Weird, right? So it's actually pretty hard, right? You've mentioned a bunch of these methods. All of these methods are either reactive. You don't know when something's changed until something is broken, right? Which is obviously a bad place to be. Or they require you to do work, right? You have to refresh the dashboard and look at it. You have to be in the investigation, right? You have to be querying the data to understand what's going on, right? So you either have to do work or you're completely reactive. When something breaks, you react to it. Well, we have built an AI agent that will tell you when something has changed in your data without you having to do any of these things, right? Without you having to refresh dashboards, react to things that are broken that someone's telling you about, or kind of do your own querying. And it looks kind of like this. This is live today for Anomalo customers, and you can see a demo of this in our booth 1206. If you want to see a live demo, we don't have time for a demo here. But what the agent does is it basically creates a kind of news feed of everything that's changing in your data, right? Without being told what to look for or what to do, it's coming up with things in your data that are moving, that are changing, trends that have changed, new values that have appeared, distributions that have shifted, drift that has occurred. It's catching all of those things, and it's creating this kind of news feed covering what happened, what evidence it was able to pull, what kind of magnitude it saw. It's creating its own visualizations to demonstrate what happened. And it's doing it all completely autonomously. No one asked this agent about any of these things that you see on the screen. It spotted them as sort of noteworthy changes in those data sets, and it wrote up these reports. It delivered these insights in this kind of feed of interesting things happening in the data. By the way, nothing on this screen is human written, right? The visualizations, the natural language content, you can click in, get an even bigger report of what's going on, all written by the agent. Right? So this is what we're talking about when we say self-driving data. You didn't have to prompt it, you didn't have to ask questions, you're not fighting a fire. The agent is working 24/7. It's looking at your most important data sets, and it's coming up with things you should know. And it's reporting on those things for you, right? And it's doing it completely autonomously in the background. It's like adding, world-class data analysts to your team, right? Or 1,000 of them. I'll tell you a little bit about how it works. Turns out, if you just ask, an off-the-shelf large language model to do this, it won't work, right? Large language models are good at unstructured data documents. They're not very good at understanding what's changing in sort of your table in Snowflake, what's changing in tabular data. They need a lot of guidance, right? Or they're going to spot things that are completely irrelevant. And by the way, blow through a lot of tokens doing so. So what we did is we actually have a cheap model, doesn't even use GPUs, right? It's a purely statistical model that's looking for any kind of change in the data set. And it's creating a kind of prioritized list of all interesting changes in a data set. Here's the change, here's the magnitude of it, here's a sense of its significance or magnitude. And that becomes an input to the AI agent, right? Now, instead of having to find insights in the data starting from nothing, it has sort of a prioritized list of things to explore in the data that could lead to something meaningful, right? That's a much more suitable problem for an AI agent for a modern large language model. And so it's able to take that on. An agent runs, and it goes through that list, and it's able to do things like deduplicate the items in that list. Maybe the same change appears a few times or is reflected in a couple of different ways. It's able to prioritize what's interesting, what's not interesting. It's able to do its own investigation, right? It can run additional queries to see, okay, I see this change, let me look at a longer historical context to understand how big of a change this is, right? It's able to do all of those things, and ultimately, it writes up a report that shows you what happened, what evidence it collected, what's going on, that you can then consume, right? So rather than you being unaware of what's happening or having to find these changes yourself, you can just consume this news feed of interesting changes in your data. Now, of course, the system actually doesn't work if you don't have this third piece, right? We actually had to build our own verification agent that reads every report and goes line by line and says, can I verify that this line is true, right? If the insight says, oh, there's been a 10% change in the mean of this column, the verification agent will go through and say, I'm going to double check that there's actually been a 10% change in the mean of this column, right? Because if you don't double check, it actually turns out that hallucinations still happen, even with the most advanced models, right? And so having an additional verification agent that sort of runs independently at the end and verifies everything and sends things back to sort of the insights agent in the middle and says, this is wrong, correct this, right? Turns out to be very, very important. So you can see this live today for Anomalo customers. We're also launching this as Anomalo Analyst in a few weeks where anyone can try it. Even if you're not an Anomalo customer, you can just sign up, pick a table in your data warehouse, data lake environment, and see what the agent tells you, see what kind of insights it can derive. So if you want to give this a try now, we have this fun QR code here. That will take you to the sign-up page, and you'll get to try the Anomalo Analyst product with your data. Again, very simple. You connect it to your data lake, connect it to your data warehouse. The agent runs in the background. It will tell you interesting things that it finds in your data. No work from you. So take a picture, use the QR code, and of course, visit us in booth 1206. It's right down there, straight back. from this theater, and we have this running live on some demo data sets that we use for our demos. So you can check it out. You can dig into the insight reports. You can chat with the agent to see what it did and what it knows. I'll take any questions. Yeah, great question. So the question is, we have a separate agent at the end of our process that verifies the results. So the question was, how do we evaluate that the verifier actually is doing its job? So this is a great one. We actually have an internal eval, an internal benchmark that introduces hallucinations and see if the verifier is able to catch them. And so we're running that all the time. Any change, any model upgrade, any change to our code, anything like that, we run through that internal evaluation to make sure the verifier. We're also evaluating the core agent to see how many hallucinations it produces, but that allows us to be confident that the verifier is correct. Any other questions? Yeah.
Cost-wise, are you doing anything to manage costs? It sounds like it could get expensive.
Yeah, so the question was cost-wise. Are we doing anything to manage costs? Because it sounds like it could get expensive. So actually a few things, if you look at this flow, first of all, just having this first step is a huge reduction in the tokens that we're going to use, because the agent doesn't start from scratch. It's starting from kind of a list of candidates to explore. That's much, much cheaper, right, than starting from scratch. And this costs almost nothing, right? This is like CPU, on your server. We're not calling an LLM to do it. Two, at this step, if you want to manage costs, then you can kind of ignore everything below a certain magnitude, right, of changes. Again, this is why this step is so helpful, because you get a prioritized list, so you can draw a line. You can say, how important is it? Do I want to look through every possible change in this table, or do I only care about the most significant, right? And you can kind of set that dial. We set it by default at somewhere in the middle, right? But you can envision how to manage costs, you would set that dial differently for different tables, right? A table that was very important, you want to know everything. A table that was less important, you kind of major things you might want to know about. And then the verifier is actually a cost management technique as well, because the verifier is a lot cheaper, right? So in this flow, you really only need a frontier expensive model here in the middle, right? And you can kind of set the dial on how much work you want it to do, right? The verifiers could be one of those really fast, cheap models that, pretty much everyone has these days. All right, question over here. Yeah, so the question is there something to write back to the source system, to kind of note the anomaly? Today, we don't really write to the source systems. We kind of, allow the humans to do that, right? Yeah, eventing, yeah, absolutely. So what we are doing, so Kafka is similar, we are sending alerts on these things, notifications. And so you can get those in a bunch of different things, Slack, Microsoft Teams, email, PagerDuty, all those kinds of things, where you will be notified, right? So you don't have to come back to the UI if you don't want to. Can you write custom rules? Absolutely, right? So Anomalo overall, I realized I never introduced our main product. Anomalo is a data quality product, right? Well, not only will it find insights for you, but if you want to use rules to catch very particular things, we will let you do this. So, and of course, in the modern age, we will let you do so in natural language, right? So you don't have to write any code and do all those kinds of things. The other fun piece about this product is you can give the agent feedback. And you can say things like, you can enter a chat session, you can say things like, oh, this is a great insight, I want to see more of these, or oh, no, actually, we look at it this other way. And it will save that to a memory system. And from that point on, it will use that information, right? So you can also kind of give it guidance and steering to tell it what to do. All right, I think that's our time. Thank you so much. I'll be around back here for more. Thank you. Stop by our booth.